Welcome to Tip That Scale and the second part of our opposing views conversation. In episode 29, you heard our differing positions on capitalism and socialism. In this episode, we dive a little bit deeper, but more importantly, we're talking more about opportunities and choice. Have a listen.
No, I do agree that the rich are getting richer and the people in the middle class are getting poorer. I 100% agree. What I'm trying to say again is that individuals are not willing to give up what they have right now in order for that things to change. It's because of that safety net kind of thing. It's the fear of failing. That's what I was saying before. And a lot of it is just again the standards that are being put on us by our own particular society. We're being told this is what we need to be when half the time you don't even know if those people are doing the thing. It's just a facade. That's what I'm trying to say.
And
You
a lot of
don't
that,
need a lot of things in order for you to get up. Everybody should be provided with food, a place to live, air, water. Those are the things. Honestly, there's people in the world that don't even have that. They eat maybe once every 3 days, 4 days. They eat only what they can get themselves. It's those types of situations. What we're going through right now, even the problems that we're facing, we're still better off than a lot of people that are out there. But we're so focused on us and what's happening in the US that we don't see what's happening in other parts of the world. And that's what I
but
meant
it,
by the news and the social media. It's just there's a whole lot of bullshit that nobody really talks about. They're not really pointing out the actual problems.
But isn't that part of what's happening anyway? And let's not even talk about the world. We can talk about the world, but let's not talk about the world. A huge issue is that people aren't even caring about the people that are here.
They don't.
So we can talk about the world and we should, but also there are people who don't give a rat's ass about their neighbor. Or I think about there are some places
Why is that
in,
though? And when did that change?
did it ever change or has it always been that way?
Here's the thing, in order for society to succeed, there has to be a certain level of camaraderie amongst your own, even your group of people that are around you. That's why you see a lot of these movements. They're gathering more and more people jumping in, and they're starting to get more and more notoriety and have a bigger voice because they're connecting. But you're right. A lot of people, I mean, hell, man, there's people that I've heard that they haven't even met their neighbor in the last 5 years. They don't even know who their neighbor is. This person lives right next to them.
Right.
But
But
like,
what I'm saying is the fact of not caring, it's always been like that.
no, it's not always been like
It's
that.
it's always been like that. I mean, we may be thinking about it from two different perspectives.
Inherently, a person is
How do
only going to
we
care about themselves and how they can move forward. And if it actually the person sitting next to them, if it's conducive to their success, yes, then they're also going to care about their problems. I do agree.
mm,
But when you stop caring about even the other person's needs for your own personal success and gains, and you're willing to destroy your neighbor next to you to do it, that's what's kind of happened.
you know what? That's existed to some degree for
Well,
centuries.
100%. It's part of human nature. It's
So
just, I mean, it'd be really interesting. When did that change? But like,
too many people have experience people not caring so they can get the leg up or they can have more or they can have positions of power or wealth. It's happened so often and so much,
oh yeah,
and it's and it's
100%.
still and it's still happening. And my big issue, or my big, I don't know that I say it's a concern, but it is something that I think about, is the fact of how do you balance the scales, and can the scales be balanced? Let's just talk about CEOs for a second, because we know how we felt when we were laid off, the actions and how it was happening and what was lost. There was definitely there was levels of anger and anxiousness and a whole lot of things that we went through. But do you think, so this goes back to that care, do you think that, what was more important? What do you think
I'll
they
tell you what.
cared more about?
Here's the thing that pissed me off the most: being lied to. I knew it was coming.
So if they
I
lied
knew
to
for
you,
a
did they care
while.
about you?
No, they didn't. That's the
Right.
point. And here's the problem: we knew that they were lying to us, and they were still blatantly lying to us. I even gave them an out when the first one happened. And then I had that conversation, that meeting with the, and he comes out and just says it is what it is kind of shit. Right after that, my direct, her direct, jumped on a call with me. And I told him, give me at least a month's heads up and I'll understand. Didn't even do that.
Do you feel
And
like you were wrong?
Oh, to be laid off right a day after my birthday? Yes. And knowing it was coming on my day off?
So that's
Yeah,
the that's that's
100%.
the that's the same thing that we were talking about earlier. And you mentioned that how people,
Don't give a
where
shit.
people are, that they feel wronged or not heard, and then they don't know how to move forward and get out of that. And for a lot of people, they don't, because it hurts. I mean, sometimes it just hurts. We do too much to think that we are strong people. We don't give ourselves enough grace to fall apart. And like
Any
you said,
person's
to
mind can be
fail.
broken.
Huh?
Any person's mindset can be broken.
But what I'm saying is, we don't give ourselves enough grace to allow that. And then when we're talking about who's making the decisions and all of that, there's so much.
Well, I go back to
I
we're a
th- I think
product of
all
our
of this is
environment,
a
right?
I think all of this is an outlet. Everything that we're seeing is an outlet about the rich getting richer, especially after the pandemic and even before, mentioning quiet quitting, mentioning the great resignation. All of this is a response to even the writer strike and now the actor strike. It really is people responding and saying, is this fair? Is this fair? And not just is this fair, but do you care? Because if you cared, are you willing to make some sacrifices on your end for the betterment of other people?
That's what I'm trying to say is a lot of people don't really care to make the sacrifices now in order for them to go further at later. Now, you mentioned the actors and the writers strike. If it was
Mhm.
a single actor or a single actor saying, I'm going on strike, would Hollywood even care? No. But in order for you to get that's the perspective that a lot of people haven't realized is that they're a lot stronger together than they are apart. And that's when you start looking at this individualistic standpoint where you're able to harm or destroy your neighbor in order for your own personal gain, or with the mindset of me is where you fall behind. And same thing with the rich getting richer, right? They know that they're only going to get rich is if they can take the money away from someone else. That's the whole game of money. He has, I want, what can I do to get? If you really want to stop putting more and more money into the pocket of the rich and the wealthy, stop buying their stuff.
That's
Stop
what I'm
jumping into their
doing.
ideologies. People talk to me about Tesla and all this other stuff. I'm like, I ain't never buying that car. People talk to me about like, Prime Day. I didn't buy a damn thing the last 2 days because you see what's happening. I mean, Amazon laid off people and then they had their best Prime Day and for knows how long. How does that make any sense? And then the whole basis of Prime Day and how Amazon makes their money, it's not off of their own products. They take a cut of every store that they have built into Amazon, every purchase. And so
Yep.
for them to make $12.7 billion, for them to take a cut from somebody else's sale, how many transactions were actually made that day? And what was the total actual profit? I'm not saying like, oh yeah, people don't deserve this and people are just all like uppity and they shouldn't get this type. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying if you want real change, you have to make sacrifices in order for that change to come about. And a lot of people aren't willing to do that. Honestly, I'm learning that right now. There's sacrifices that you have to make in order for you to get to the next level. If you fall, figure out a way to get back up. Have I figured it out yet? No. Will I? Yes. Essentially, that's what it is. And like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. Will I eventually figure it out? Yes. With enough time and enough patience for myself, yes, I'll figure it out. But like, there's so many unemployed people right now, and they're all going through the same thing. No, not the same thing. Similar things. Saying something like everybody's going through the same thing. I mean, no two people are going through the same things. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
It's just, it goes back to what are the actual problems? That's what people aren't answering. People can't afford to buy a house. Why? People can't afford to go buy food because their wages don't match up with the cost of inflation. Why? What is actually happening? And that's what we mentioned before, the news, right? Like they're not really reporting on the things that are actual problems. And it's filling people's heads with a lot of unnecessary things and just
And
deflect from the issue.
and I'm going to go back to saying that some things are viewed as problems for some people and some things aren't.
I mean,
It's
honestly,
just it's just
people,
that balance. That's
yeah,
what it.
people aren't bad. People aren't inherently just bad. I mean, there are some, but yes, people do care about other people in general. But when and you were talking about the opportunity and the
Mhm.
reason why this person isn't getting to where this person is, a lot of times, person A doesn't know the issues that person B is facing. because they're a product of their own environment. They don't know, and it doesn't make sense or register in their head. Kind of like when somebody from the U.S. goes to one of these African tribes and they see their standard of living. To us, that's chaotic. To them, that's just how they live.
That's why I said they don't know. And for many, they don't care. Because if it doesn't match up, or if I tell you that this is my situation, but you don't believe it because it's not your situation, then you're automatically discounting what I said. That's what I'm talking about how so many people discount another person's issues or problems because they aren't going through it. Like if you're not, well, then it's something that you did. Maybe
No,
not,
no, yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
there's so many different levels to it that I think it's hard. And I always use my other favorite term, broad brush. A lot of
Uh-huh.
people respond to things with a broad brush, and that's where it's a challenge because it doesn't apply to everyone the same way. I've
It's
learned that some time ago, that what may be happening with me is not the same thing. Shoot, that my sister and we grew up in the same household. We lived in the same household, but having different experiences. But a lot of
100%
people
true.
don't understand that. And I stand by the fact that I think a lot of people don't care based on how people respond to the suffering of other people. I know there's a subset that really do care, but I know there's another subset that they don't. And that
Well,
saddens me, but it doesn't shock me.
again, I don't think it's the fact that people don't care. I think it's the ignorance behind the actual problem. If you don't know, it's that hear no evil, see no evil kind of thing. If you don't know that it exists, how can you care about it? If you're not living it day to day, how can you care about it? And if it doesn't, like if you haven't gone through it, to a lot of people, it's not that they don't care, it doesn't make sense to them.
For some, it doesn't make sense. I do believe for some, they don't care. They don't care because it doesn't affect them.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there are people like that. There are. I mean, I'm not going to discount that. I'm saying, but who's to say, who are we to decide who cares and who doesn't care?
I'm not deciding
Yeah.
that. I'm just saying I know, based on how people respond. And this is where social media does help, because it's given me some insight into how people think and how
Mhm.
people are ignorant to the experiences of others. And again,
Uh,
how people would discount the experiences of others, try to gaslight, try to deflect, and try to minimize what other people are going through. And so that's where I get that they don't care from.
I mean,
But
at the end of the day, like this goes, a lot of it goes back into the perspective of the problems that you're facing. A lot of the things that you might be facing, you're thinking that this is the end. This is, how am I going to get out of it? And how am I going to do this? You'll get out of it. Just give yourself some time and patience. And don't create a cause a bigger problem for yourself when you're doing it, because it's going to take you just that much longer to get out of the issue that you're facing. It's hard for individuals to understand. Like when this podcast or this particular episode first started, I don't think we were on the same wavelength, and I believe that like we were thinking about two different things. But like when it comes into perspective of where we are right now and what problems we're facing as a society, we're not trying to tackle what the actual issues are. Basic food, basic necessities. And I mean, if we talk about those things, who's responsible for giving that to you?
yeah, we weren't on. I don't know that we're still on the same page, in all honesty,
Yeah,
because it,
but that's what I'm trying
it's
to say. If we
there
if we start talking about the
is.
government needs to do this and the government needs to give us these things, that's moving more into a socialist kind of thing. But if we start talking about you yourself and the people around you are responsible for giving you those things, that's capitalist. But if we have this mindset of we need the government to step in and we need to do this and the government has to do this, that's where it moves more into the socialist piece.
Even from that
And they
standpoint,
have been.
I guess I don't think that it's just the government that does it from a socialist, from making opportunities available. And that's where we started off, where I was saying that I don't see that the government is doing that and making this country a socialist country, because the opportunities are still not there. It's too capitalistic, it's too focused on, and it's always been this way. It's always been this way from the beginning, where the rich get richer, those in power have power. The 1%, and granted, the 1% has gotten wider just by the number of sheer people that have been added to the country. When I say capitalism, I'm looking at it from the standpoint of those in power that have the opportunity to not take from everyone. And I'm not talking about buying power. I'm just
Hmm.
talking about sheer taking, getting these systems that create barriers for people to even reach anything. So when you see those barriers, it's hard. Some people are like, well, shoot, I'm going to jump over that barrier. I'm going to get mine. But other people see that barrier and they are just defeated because they can't see any other opportunity that's there. All they see is a wall. They can't even imagine what's available or on the other side of that wall, or what they imagine is something that I don't even know what. I mean, may get over the wall and it'll be worse, because that's the environment that they've come from. That's what they've seen. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot for people to pull themselves up to even imagine that there's something different. So sometimes it's just so much and so defeating to even move toward that. So that's why we're saying, when we're talking about, oh yes, the opportunities are available to everyone, and they aren't. I'll say it like this: I don't believe they are. And that's why I'll say that people don't care, because historically people have proven, again, not everybody, but historically we can see that people will step on someone else to get to what they want and for themselves. Because
It's a
if
Darwinian
we
theory.
all we've done is amplified everything that's been going on for hundreds of years. It's amplified now because we're seeing it, we're talking about it, because we have social media, we have these tools to talk more about. I can talk to someone on the other side of the world about what's going on here, where there was one time that wasn't available. That's my
But
position.
I agree, but who is responsible for that change and who is responsible for giving you those things?
Well, there are two, because I
Hmm.
made the choice to make that available. And some of it is like, if I'm on Instagram, but I don't use this one. So I don't use Snapchat. I made that choice. But yes,
Hmm.
there are technologies and technology companies that are available that created this. But then there are tons of it. That's where we have that option. But still, you
Well, no, I'm
know,
asking like who is responsible for giving you those opportunities? Who or what?
who's responsible for giving me what opportunities?
The opportunities we've been talking about throughout this episode. Like who's responsible? Who or what is responsible for giving you the opportunity to be successful?
It's
It's
been
yourself.
is no, it hasn't just been me. It
No, I get
hasn't
it,
just
but I
been
mean,
me.
but that's what I'm trying to say is who or what is responsible? What is the solution to the basis of this entire argument?
The
And I'm not
solution
talking about the
is,
argument between me and you. I'm talking about as a
yeah,
whole.
unfortunately, it's the same solution that we haven't been able to overcome. What's important to everyone and what creates that belief? If we keep putting an emphasis on more, we're always going to be defeated by that. That sense of wanting more has always been a challenge and always been a hurdle.
Where does that come from, though? That's the thing. That's what I've been talking about. Where does that I want this because this person has it? Where did that come from?
So though, we're talking about two different things.
Okay.
I'm not talking about I want this because this person. I'm talking about I want more. I want more. It's one person, not necessarily dependent on somebody else. So, and
Hmm.
I see that that's power. That's people who have, and no offense, but there are people who have opportunities and they want more, and they will stand in the way of other people having those same opportunities. And what could be driving that could be a lot of things. They could say, oh, well, I want more because this person wants more. Or it could be very innate. It can be very narcissistic. It could be very, from a psychological standpoint, that I want more because now we go back to that deserves. I want more because I already have more and I deserve to have more because
Hmm.
nobody else is me. That's very narcissistic.
Yeah.
I guess I see that there's such a distance between opportunities and resources that are available that I believe that's also causing more of our headache, more of our trauma, more of our stress. The more that widens, the more we have more of those issues. The have and the have nots. The haves are always going to say, well, shoot, I'm going to always have. Sometimes the have nots may want what the haves have. And then sometimes the have nots will say, oh, I don't even know how to get that.
Yeah, but like, let's just say, for instance, you had the same opportunity as Jeff Bezos, and you were put
Well,
in that,
what's the
and you were put in
opportunity?
it to be as wealthy as that, and do all of those things, and be the person that he is today. Like, you had the
Okay.
opportunities, you made the same decisions, and all this other stuff. And again, I'm just using him as an example. But would you do things differently? It's easy to say yes, but again, you're a product of your environment and the situations that you put in yourself.
I can say yes, not because of the product of my environment, but because of who I am.
No, no, I get that. But like, if that was the case, then you'd have a lot of billionaires doing the exact same thing, and the vast majority of them don't. It's like I said, it's easy for you to say that because it's your perspective of what you've grown up with and who you are as a person right now. But that mindset came from the experiences you went through and what you're seeing. But if you're in the same position as them and you made the same decisions as they did and you went up the same path, I don't know if anybody could answer that question honestly and say, yeah, I'd be different because you don't know.
Well, I'm going to say I would be different. We have very different perspectives. We have a lot of similarities, but we also have very different perspectives, but also very different values. And I think, and maybe not very different, but what we value, there are some core things that we value that are the same. And then there are some things based on our experiences that are different. You grew up
Hmm.
in a small town outside of Dallas. I grew up in Dallas. That in itself brought in different experiences, cultural, ethnicity, religious backgrounds, experiences, all that plays into it. This is something that is important for anyone to know. And this is how I view it. When we're talking about opportunities and what's
Hmm.
available to people, I do believe that a lot of it comes from those experiences. One of the things I have a true challenge with is people not being heard. And sometimes you can't understand because it's just completely out of your realm, but you can listen.
Yep.
You can listen, and you can listen not to respond. And what I see is that a lot of people love to respond to a lot of shit they know nothing about.
Yeah.
Period. They love to respond, and then they love to respond with a lot of authority about it as well. And I've had this conversation in person as well as online. Don't tell me about my experience. Because for me, when we're talking about opportunities, and maybe this is where I come to it from, there are
Hmm.
some things that if I look at the people I went to high school with, they went ahead and went to school, went away to school, directly into college and a 4-year university. My trajectory, my pattern was different. Now, at this age, I can be, I'm appreciative of my path and my journey, but I've learned. And I've also learned that in just an understanding and being around, and maybe it's volunteering, maybe it's being in different cities and just living differently and being open because that's how I grew up, and understanding that it's easy to say that everybody can make it, but it's hard to really put that into practice when you understand all the barriers, all the obstacles, all, and sometimes those barriers are internal. It's not easy. It's easy to say, but it's not always in practice. And so if we're talking about a problem to solve, my problem in that instance, which I do think about, is how can I support either a group or an organization? What can I do with my time and with my energy, with my money to help make a difference in that area? Because I know what I've gone through. I know that everybody doesn't have access to resources or even know that those resources are there. So what can I do to make a difference? That's me. Now, I know not everybody answers that question, and that's on them. Good on me. But for me and my household, I'm always going to think about what can I do to make a difference and what can I do to help. And some of that is shedding light on the fact that it's not always easy for everyone. that people have challenges. I'm fortunate to sit on the board and I hear the stories of young people that have gone through some stuff that other people could not, I can't even imagine it sometimes. But knowing that other people, I'm there, I get to hear it, but other people couldn't even imagine it. And to the point that they'll say, that didn't happen. I hate that. I hate that because I hate when you dismiss when anyone's experience is dismissed or when it's just, oh well, you can do better. Well, maybe I can. You don't know what else is a barrier to doing that. That's where I am.
So I agree with you, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's going to be hard as shit for you to be able to change your perspectives and change and get to the next level. It's not impossible. Now we're talking about. I mean, you just mentioned it. Is like your experiences and the things that you've gone through and the things that you've seen, and then your views have come from your environment and things like that. But if you're going to try to change every person's perspective on this planet to care and give a shit about you, it's not going to happen. So
Yeah.
what you're responsible for is your own success and what that means to you. Some people being successful is just having food on the table on a daily basis. Some people set small goals for yourself and get there, and eventually you'll get to whatever height. And even if you don't get to be a billionaire in your lifetime, the only level of success that a person can truly chase is to make themselves happy, and that's to look inwards. There are a lot of people that go through a lot of shit in their life, but it also defines who they are. You can be inherently a good person through all of those experiences and understand what another person could go through, or you could take it the other route and just be completely angry and start pointing the finger and doing this and doing that. It's a lot of it is perspective, and you're right. Like there's opportunities out there for certain people that other people just don't see, but like we also don't see what those other people went through to get those opportunities or how they got there. And yes, there are some very evil people on this planet. And some of those people took very evil decisions to get those opportunities. It's for you to decide, are you willing to do the same things? I'm not trying to say that, people don't deserve the basic necessities of life and all this other stuff, but there's 6 billion people on this planet. You're not going to change everybody's mind into doing certain things. But what you can do is take charge for yourself, is what I'm trying to say, and make the necessary moves in order for you yourself to be successful. It's a level of selfishness that you do have to understand, and you have to define what success means to you.
That's the reason why my position is not just success for me. Actually, it's less about me and more about others. How can I help other people? And
Yeah, I
so,
mean,
yeah, I'm not trying, it's beyond me, and I'm not trying to change the mind of the world by no means. But what I will always try to do is bring light to issues and topics and just help people understand and communicate what they may not even think about. That's what's important to me. Maybe that's the reason I haven't attained a certain level of what other people would see as success, whether financially, whether from a title standpoint, or whatever, because it's not always, honestly, it hasn't always been about me. I am very much a person who believes in, and this is why I stand on and have a problem with so many CEOs or that 1%. If I can give a hand up, if I can give advice, if I can help support, if I can share resources, whatever, that's what I want to do. And I've been fortunate that that's what I've been able to do throughout my life. Sometimes better than others, other times with more financial backing. And I know there are a lot of people that are out there that do the same thing. I appreciate them, but there are a lot of people who stand in the way of progress. And when I say stand in the way of progress, I'm talking about standing in the way of progress for other individuals when they don't have to. They can move the hell out the way and just get out the way. Don't be a barrier to other people. I do see that quite a bit. And it's disheartening.
Well, so those are the people that should be targeted. Not target is the wrong word, but those are the people that should be spoken to. But the first step is identifying who those people are. Because then, at least at that point, there's some type of route or some type of solution to a problem. And if these people still don't care at that point, well, then at that point, you know who your enemies are. I strongly do believe that people aren't inherently bad. It's just that sometimes they just do things that are not conducive to another person's success. People aren't born on this planet evil. I mean, unless you're,
Yeah, I believe that.
it's just what you've been taught and what you've learned throughout your life.
And what you choose to do, because it is about choice. It's
Again, that's
very
what I'm
much about
saying.
choice.
Your
So,
choices and your actions define who you are. No matter what decision you make, there is, I mean, right or wrong is not it. It's just the path that it puts you on. You've gone through certain experiences and you've heard certain things and you've gone through all of these different things that makes you who you are. I mean, Nichole, for you specifically, like you've seen things, you've gone through things, and because of the things that you've seen, you have this urge to help, which is very commendable. But then there's other people that have gone through a very opposite type of experience that are like, I don't want to help because every time I help, I get screwed.
or I don't want to help because why should I help? I didn't get any help. That's the other option, the other
Yeah.
opportunity as well.
I mean, those are, yes, that's the thing that happens too. But like, you are a product of your own actions, you're a product of your environment. For decisions you make are going to define you, especially after a problem comes up. What kind of person do you want to be? And do you want to chase happiness or do you want to chase whatever else? Again, I go back to 6 billion people on this planet. You're not going to change everybody's perspective to believe in the same things you want to believe in or give you the things that you want or need. I mean, honestly, nobody would do that. But you can do things for yourself and you can do things for the people you care about. And sometimes it may feel like there are no opportunities and the walls are closed in on you, but give yourself time and patience and you'll come out of it. You might have to make certain sacrifices. You might have to fall before you stand back up, but you will stand back up. And you may have this ideology of, I want to be a billionaire and I want to do this, but, you may or may not get to that point. But what you can chase is success and what that means to you and how to define it. That's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Like, you're just not going to change everybody's perspective. It's just not going to happen.
And again, not expecting to by no means.
I think about things from not only my perspective, but I think about a perspective of another person, what they potentially could be going through. I'm
But
not trying to say like,
I'm the same way. But when we started, we see differently regarding capitalism, socialism, and kind of the experience of the government and what's happening.
honestly,
I
and this is
like
just
going
my opinion.
like going back to deserves, you mentioned deserves. We had a conversation about you saying someone was talking about reparations. And I know how you feel about that, but I also know and I understand reparations from a different standpoint. Yeah, it wasn't me. By no means. I didn't go through this, but I can go back and look at the people in my family before then that did and didn't get anything for their labor. And I think that's
Oh, yeah.
and when we're talking about labor, because we talk about labor quite a bit, they didn't get anything for their labor, and they still aren't even acknowledged for it when other groups have. We've
See, I
seen it
understand that.
even most recently, the judge in Tulsa for 4 people who went through the Tulsa race riots, and the judge said, "No, y'all not gonna get anything, bitch. Please, what?" You mean they're dealing with, and this is what I think people don't recognize, which this breaks my heart. People don't understand the trauma behind it, even going through layoffs. This breaks my heart because those people making those decisions, they can pretend, but they aren't thinking about the trauma. Number one, what people have given. They're the recipient of mismanagement, and you don't care because you're focusing on your bottom line. That's what I see a lot with these layoffs. I don't have a problem with wealthy people. What I have a problem with is greedy wealthy people. Greedy wealth, and this is where capitalism in my mind comes from. It's the greed and capitalism to the point where you're capitalizing on someone else's misfortune to give you the leg up. That's my
Oh,
position.
yeah. I mean, I have a problem with that too. I'm just saying that, like, that's not going to change.
It's not about changing, it's about talking about it, because the more people are aware of it, then it does create an idea of, okay, well, what can I do? I'm not responsible for changing that person. And this is where I think a lot of people have gotten tired. They're tired of people talking about what's happening But if we didn't talk about the Great Resignation, we wouldn't have known. The only reason we knew about the layoffs is that they were talked about and communicated. Otherwise, we would have been in a microcosm of the layoffs within. So unless we talk about it, and I'm having a crisis of consciousness because I've been tiptoeing about what I want to say or what should be said. And I'm getting to a point where I'm like, I'm saying it. If you are, again, stepping on other people, I have a problem. That's where I am.
No,
I'm
I
gonna cool
agree
it
with
off.
that. I've always lived with the belief of do whatever you want to do as long as it doesn't harm another person. That's how I've always tried to live. I get your point of view, and I also see it, but I also do believe that the government is stepping more and more into our daily lives, and it's not for the better. It's causing more and more issues. I just don't like the way things are going with the world. It's kind of shit.
From the standpoint of the government, is that's what I thought they were here for. It's like the same thing thinking about the police. Their statement is to protect and serve.
Yeah.
So,
Uh,
and that's where I see, even with the government, your role is there for us. Whew, that was a lot. So what do you think? What's your worldview? Not just about capitalism and socialism, but what do you think about opportunities? Have you always had the opportunities available to you? Do you feel that anything was blocking you or was a barrier to your success? Are you achieving a higher height or a higher level? It's something to think about. And more importantly, it's something that we should talk about. I want to thank you for listening to Opposing Views. As always, we'd love for you to follow us, subscribe, and definitely like any and all episodes of Tip That Scale. Beyond that, definitely go and visit us on Twitter and Instagram.